This 1-4 in college algebra today, basic types of equations or writing the equations of lines. All kinds of forms of linear equations that you've been taught of. General form, which a lot of people call standard form also, should really be written like this instead of with the lowercase letters. It's ax plus by equals c. The reason why they use the capital letters is a, b, and c have to be integers, meaning no decimals in that situation. And the a value has to be positive, so whatever this first guy is right here has to be a positive number. That's truly standard form of a line. Slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, m is the slope, b is the y-intercept. Point-slope form, which we should be pretty familiar with, to where if they give you a point on the line and the slope, we'll use this equation. Every vertical line only has one variable in it. It's x equals some number. And horizontal lines, they only have one variable in it, y equals some number. Going back to an oblique line again, oblique lines have both x and y in their equations. When they ask you to find the average rate of change, they've got a very fancy formula right here. It's the same as slope because this is like f of b minus f of a. Well, these are your y values, if you will, y1 minus y2. And these are your x values, x1 minus x2. So average rate of change, same thing as finding the slope. And then here's the new thing for today, finding the difference quotient, which we'll talk about on the back side. So the hardest part, same thing on my math lab, is following the instructions. I hope you're learning to read slowly and do what they ask you to do. Write the equation of the line with the given conditions in slope-intercept form and in standard form. Do not use decimals or rational numbers. So slope-intercept form, they straight up tell you. Let's label it slope int y equals m, which is the slope. They tell us it's 4. X next to it. Y-intercept is 1/2. You are allowed to use fractions and stuff in slope-intercept form. What the instructions mean is when you go in standard form, that's why it says a, b, and c have to be integers. Now, what we have to do standard, which I'll let you abbreviate STD, standard form, we need to clear the fractions. See how it's got a divide by 2 in there, right? So I'm going to multiply every term times 2, and I'm just going to have 2y equals 8x plus 1. Holler if you need some help following me. I just took every term times 2, correct? Now I just got to put them in the right order. The stuff with the x has to come first, so I'm going to subtract him over and get negative 8x plus 2y equals 1. And that's still not in standard form. Why not? Even though all the numbers are integers, why isn't it not in standard form? Because a has to be positive, and a is this first third. Dude is what I wanted to say, the first dude. So what you do is take everything times negative 1 to keep it balanced. Change all the signs. 8x minus 2y equals negative 1. And you didn't do a lot of standard form stuff through your algebra career. You did a lot of slope-intercept form stuff. Cool with those? Again, they give me a point and a slope, so take a wild guess which form you'd use over here when they give you a point and a slope. You would use point-slope form. So what we do is we substitute in. It's y minus y1, which here's your y1 right here. It's the y value that they gave you. So minus a minus 6, my bad, eraser. Minus a minus 6 becomes a plus 6. Equals m, which is the slope, times the quantity of x minus x1. Do you understand why everything went in the places that it went? Now, this is not any answer that they wanted because they wanted slope-intercept form or they wanted standard form. So let's put it in slope-intercept form first. That means let's solve for y. First thing I would do is distribute this negative 3/4 through, and that's going to be real nice because, first let's bring this bad boy down. Nothing happened to him. How do I know it's going to be real nice? This denominator of 4, does it go into this number 4 evenly? It's going to come out real nice. So obviously negative 3/4 times x is negative 3/4 x. I look at the sign next. I have a negative times a negative, which should come out to be positive. Then I just look at the numbers and multiply them together. 4 goes into 4 once. Take that times your numerator, and you get a 3. One more time. Since this is divide by 4, you see how many times does it go into him? 1 time. Then take that times your numerator, and you get 3. That's not in slope-intercept form, though, because y is not all by itself. So we will subtract the 6. and then I'll put a box around him. I don't need you to label them on paper, you know. Maybe on the homework quiz next time you can do that, but on all these practice problems, pretty obvious which one's slope-intercept form, which one's standard form. Standard form, let's start a new set of work right here. You know, just leave that guy boxed. Got to get rid of all the fractions. What do you want to take every term times to get rid of all the fractions? 4. So 4y equals negative 3x. Boy, this pen is not cooperating at all. Minus 12. Correct? And then we got to add the x's over. So that gives me my positive 3x plus 4y equals negative 12. And you also should check through those numbers if you could factor out a GCF. Like between a 3 and a 4 and a negative 12, you just think of it as positive. If there was a number that goes into all of those evenly, you factor that out. Example, 6x plus 8y equals 10. Doesn't 2 go into every single one of those numbers? So you'd reduce each one of them by a factor of 2. So nothing went in there evenly. Cool. Blank screen. Vertical line going through this point. Very simple. That's all they're asking for is the equation of a vertical line that goes through that point. Vertical lines have which variable in them? The equation has which one? X. And according to the point that they gave you, does x equal 9 or does x equal negative 10? X equals 9, right? If you graph that on a grid, you know, and you drew a vertical line through it, it'd be x equals 9. The line that passes through these 2 points, you can go through all the work and find the slope between those 2 points, then use point-slope form and write it in slope-intercept form and all that, etc. But the first thing I do is I look at the ordered pairs. Are the x's the same? Yes or no? Nope. Are the y's the same? Yes or no? That means that that's going to be a horizontal line, y equals 2 right there. Well, because the y values were the same. If the x values were the same, then it would be a vertical line. If they're different, then it's going to be oblique, and you'll go through the process that we'll do here in a second. Use the equation to write it in point-slope form following instructions. Right? They want it in point-slope form and in standard form. So you can tell by looking that this is going to be an oblique line because the x's are not the same and the y's are not the same. We need to find the slope first. Go for it. Find the slope. I'm a guy that labels what I'm doing. I say m equals. Watch your signs. Y's are on top. Remember. I got a slope of 1. Cool. They want the equation in point-slope form. You have 2 points provided. It does not matter which points you choose. Choose one of them. And I just personally circle it. I'm going to use this point right here and substitute everything in point-slope form. You can look over here if you need to. It's been a while since you may have used that. But it's y minus y1, which since I chose this point, that's the y value, equals the slope of 1 times the quantity of x minus x1, x plus 2. And that's it. They wanted it in point-slope form. I do not know how MyMathLab will treat you on typing that 1 or not, you know. Sometimes they make you type it. Sometimes they don't make you type it. So that's why they give you more than one shot at it. They also want it in standard form. So what you got to do is still keep going and put it in slope-intercept form first, and then we'll put it in standard form. So we'd have to distribute the 1 through, right, which that's real simple. It's y minus 1 equals x plus 2. Right? All the x's need to come over nya, and all the numbers need to come over the. So I will kind of maybe do 2 things at one time if I can handle that. If I can't handle that, I will not do 2 things at one time. Sorry for the pen. It's a squiggler. Then, why is that not in standard form? Because a is negative, change all the signs. X minus y equals negative 3. Good deal? Number 9, write the equation in those 2 forms that passes through those 2 points. Use your common sense to see if it's horizontal, vertical, or oblique first. What kind of line goes through those 2 points? Vertical, it's x equals 9. both ways. There's no way to put that in point slope form because the slope is undefined, and you cannot put undefined in for m. It's just x equals 9 for a final answer on that. Yeah? Yeah. Another blank screen. This is where you want to do a little scratch work maybe, you know, on MyMathLab, having that scratch paper. They give you an x-intercept and a y-intercept. So x-intercept, write it as an ordered pair. An x-intercept is when y is 0. So isn't that really the ordered pair of -5, 0? Correct? And if the y-intercept is 4, that would be the ordered pair 0, 4, because that's when x is 0. And you can tell that that's not vertical because the x's are not the same, and that is not horizontal because the y's are not the same. So we want to find the slope between these 2 points. Let's go for it. I got the slope to be 4/5. Don't they still want it in point slope form and in slope intercept form? Or sorry, in standard form, right? So let's do point slope form. Y, pick a point, any point. I'm going to pick this one. How come? Why would I pick that one? Because that's the y-intercept also, right? That's the y-intercept. But in point slope form, it's y minus 4 equals m times the quantity of x minus 0. Again, not sure if MyMathLab is going to make you put the -0 or not. On Mrs. Colwell's answer key, it was there, so I'm assuming that they may make you put the -0 to put it in slope or point slope form. Then to put it in standard form, you can write it in slope intercept form real easy because you know the slope and you know the y-intercept was 4. Maybe. Go ahead and clear the fractions. I'm multiplying everything times 5. You'd be left with a 4x then we subtract 4x from both sides. And make sure a is positive. Cool. Yay. Passing through this point and magic P words parallel to this line. What do you know about parallel lines and their slopes? Same slope. So we better figure out the slope of this line. There are some shortcuts, tricks when it's in standard form. What's easier for you is probably just put this in slope intercept form first. So wouldn't you get y all by itself? And can you tell me the slope of that line right there? Slope is -3. What will be the slope I will use will also be -3 since parallel lines have the same slope. So I'm going to write this, m equals -3. And now let's go through the same procedure. Point slope form, y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1, which would be plus 4. That's what you'd type in one box. And then put it in standard form. Squiggle, 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 squiggle. Distributing the -3. And then add the 3x over. Add the 6 over. Another P word, got to go through this, and perpendicular to this line. So we need to know the slope of this line and then take its opposite reciprocal. Find the slope of this line for me, please. So I have taken this guy right here and put him in slope intercept form. The slope of him is -3/2. I need the opposite reciprocal of that. I like to label my work as this. Remember that symbol right there means perpendicular? And if you put a little subscript on it, says like the perpendicular slope right there. What's the opposite reciprocal of -3/2? It is a positive 2/3, right? Now let's go through the work. Y minus 5 equals 2/3 as the quantity of x plus 4. Luckily, that's all they want is point-slope form right there, right? So there's one answer, but then to put it in standard form, how did I know that I have some trouble on my hands? See this denominator of 3, it does not go into 4 evenly, but no big deal. Y minus 5 comes down. 2/3 times x is 2/3 x, if I put the x in the right place. And then to multiply these together, think of it as 4 over 1. 2/3 times 4 over 1, numerator times numerator is 8. Denominator times denominator is 3. 2/3 times 4 is 8/3. Awesome. Clearing the fractions is actually pretty simple in this case, because since both denominators are 3, right, can't we just multiply every term times 3 now? So that would give me 3y minus 15 equals 2x plus 8. All I did was take every term times 3, and now you can continue moving stuff around to put it in standard form. Da, 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 da. So on the next one, I made a graph just so you can visually see what's going to happen also. You don't have to graph this at all. But they say for this function, I hope you know that that is a parabola, correct? That's, as you can see here, compute the average rate of change between x equals this and x equals that. You should also know that a parabola does not have a constant rate of change like a line does, where you rise over run, rise over run, rise over run. The slope is different every time between this green point and this green point is totally different between this blue point and this blue point. This has a slope of nothing. This has a slope of something else, right? The rate of change is totally different. So what do you do on these problems? They're telling you x values. Write yourself 2 generic ordered pairs first. One of the ordered pairs, they want x to be -1, and in the other ordered pair, they wanted x to be 2. Is everyone cool with where those x's came from? They told them to me. How do I find the y's? I will substitute these x values in and see what y actually equals. If x was -1, and I put -1 into this equation, what does a -1 squared turn out to be? 1. So when x was -1, didn't y turn out to be 1 in this particular function? If x is 2, what does y turn out to be? 4. And now they're asking you for the average rate of change between those particular 2 points. On the front side where it said average rate of change, what are we really finding? Average rate of change, what are you really finding? Find the slope between those 2 points. You just had to create the points yourselves. So m equals 4 minus the 1 over 2 plus 1, 3 over 3, which is 1. The average rate of change between those 2 points is 1. And I will show them to you. That's why I made the graph. The 2 points were -1, 1. Isn't that this black point right here? -1, 1, right? And the other one was 2, 4. Isn't that this other black point right here? The rate of change, if I was to take a ruler and connect them together, rise 1, run 1, rise 1, run 1, rise, I kind of slipped. Rise 1, run 1, rise 1, run 1, rise 1, run 1. It's just a slope of 1 in that particular situation. Over here, this is a cubic, right? Find the average rate of change between x equals -1 and x equals 2. Set up 2 blank ordered pairs. You know the x's already. Fill in the y's. If you need help, holler. -1 cubed, will it be +1 or -1? -1. And 2 cubed is 8. Find the slope. -1, 1. If I found those 2 points on that graph and connected the dots together, the average rate of change between those 2 points with a line is 3 over 1. All right, rise 3, run 1, rise 3, run 1. Difference quotient. Here we go. Maybe the difference quotient. For those of you that have friends in calculus, wait till they get to this. You'll be like, hey, we did this in college algebra also. Weird things. You need to find the difference quotient. You need a function evaluated at x plus h minus the function evaluated at x all over h. What's h? If you really want to know, take calculus. Okay? Just follow the leader on this bad boy right here. They tell you f of x, correct? Right below that, we have to find f of x plus h. So please write what I write. We need to figure out what f of x plus h is. All you do is in f of x, where you see an x, now we put x plus h, right? It's just substituting stuff in. Just like when you did this. Evaluate f of 2, didn't you put 2 in for x into those particular situations? We are putting x plus h in for those, so you have 10 times the quantity of x plus h minus 7. You see that where there was an x, I just put x plus h instead, and it was in parentheses. And I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to distribute the 10 and say it's really 10x plus 10h minus 7. None of those are like terms. F of x plus h is going to be 10x plus 10h minus 7. Cool? So step 1, figure that out. Step 2, substitute stuff into this equation. Now we take these and substitute them into this equation. Here's f of x plus h. Don't we know that it is 10x plus 10h minus 7, correct? So we're going to have 10x plus 10h minus 7. Right? So far, are you with me? I've taken care of that red rectangle. Then I have minus. And here's the real trick. You have to put the next entire function in parentheses. F of x, which isn't f of x, this guy right here, 10x minus 7. And then to clean it all, or finalize it all, it's all over h, which we don't know what h is, and you'll never know what excuse me, you'll never know what h is. It's going to be a part of your answer most of the time. So far on my setup, cool with what I did. Now let's clean it up. You've got all this red stuff doesn't change, 10x plus 10h minus 7. But don't I have to distribute this negative through the parentheses? And we'll do this first one the long way, then we'll see a shortcut. Doesn't that become negative 10x plus 7? You with me on that? And just to show you what I'm going to do in the future, isn't this part right here, if my pen would cooperate, sorry, isn't this part right here the opposite of what that was right there because you subtracted it? There we go. Then it's over h still. Awesome? So this guy in the box is basically the opposite of that function because we had the negative 1 in there. Now what we got to do is clean up the numerator. Let's check out this. Isn't this 10x and this minus 10x like terms? What happens to those? How much do they add up to be? Nothing. We've got a negative 7 and a positive 7, correct? Isn't that nothing also? What's left in the numerator is 10h. It is still over that h though. So far so good? What's h over h turn out to be? What's 5 over 5? 1. H over h is, those cancel out, and the difference quotient for this guy is 10. Very weird. Very weird. Let's do that again. They give me f of x. We need to find f of x plus h. So I will write that down. Where there is an x, you substitute the quantity of x plus h for it. And then take it one step further and distribute the 2. I'm running out of room. F of x plus h is really 2x plus 2h plus 3. Now we have all the ingredients we need for this formula. F of x plus h, is really 2x plus 2h plus 3. And then, since we need to subtract away the entire f of x function, it's going to be the opposite of every term's sign in there. It's going to be a minus 2x, a minus 3. It's all that negative 1 got distributed, just like we did here in this parenthesis set. If you want to show all the work, show all the work. If you want to skip a step, skip a step. What's it still all got to be over, though? H. 2x, negative 2x, they're gone. 3, negative 3, they're gone. 2h over h, where the h's cancel out, difference quotient is 2. Cool? So far, everything canceled out. This was linear. This was linear. Correct? Linear, linear. Next guy. Is he linear? All variables to the first power, all that stuff. Let's see if everything cancels out again. F of x plus h is what we need to find. 45 minus 15 times x plus 8, the quantity of x plus h, which is really 45 minus 15x minus 15h. Then we substitute all our ingredients into the formula, which will be provided for you on your homework quiz, by the way. You don't have to have that memorized. Okay? It will be the 45 minus 15x minus 15h. Then whatever f of x is, since you're subtracting it away, it's the opposite of all those signs. So it will be minus 45, come on, pen, minus 45 plus 15x. Is everyone down with how I get that red thing by changing the signs? Because you have minus that entire function, which is in parentheses. You're distributing the negative 1 through there. All over h. Does most everything cancel out? 45's gone, and negative 15x, positive 15x, negative 15h over h. h's are gone, negative 15. So far, so good? Take a guess what we're going to get on 15 for an answer. Let's see how smart you are. What will our final answer be? 12 or 32? Which one do you think? Show me. Even though you may be able to figure it out when it's linear, show me the work. So go ahead and do 15 on your own. So our prediction came true. But again, what kind of function was that? Linear. Next one, finding the different quotient on a quadratic, not going to be the same thing what you think it's going to be. We, again, have to find f of x plus h. This is where you get to have some real fun. 2 times the quantity of x plus h squared plus 4. Straight substitution, again. Cool with that? Then, for those of you who did a good job of remembering how to expand a binomial squared, the 2, don't mess with them yet, but you remember binomial squared, the trick is square the first term. What's our first guy? X. I'm going to square him. Then twice the product of those. If you multiplied these together, wouldn't you get xh, right? I need twice that, so that would be 2xh. And square the last guy, and that would give you an h squared. Time out. If you don't know that shortcut, you could do this instead. X plus h times x plus h. Isn't that really what you're trying to do when you square a binomial? Take it times itself, FOIL it out, first terms times each other, outside guys times each other, inside guys times each other, and last terms times each other. And there's your 2 xh's right there, because there's xh plus xh. So it's x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. If you want to write the trick down, it's square the first guy twice the product. And then square the last guy, because we'll do it often. Hopefully your algebra teacher taught you that back in the day. And it's still not done, though, because we've got plus 4 on here. I should have done this work straight down instead of trying to go across, because we're going to run out of room. Now we have to distribute the 2 through all of here also. So you really have 2x squared plus 4xh plus 2h squared, and then you still have that plus 4. I'll slow down, see if you're with me. I just distributed the 2 to these 3 guys. Don't forget about your plus 4. That was a scraggler out there. Awesome. Now we put it into the different quotient formula. 2x squared plus 4xh plus 2h squared plus 4. That's all of this. That's f of x plus h is all I've put right there. Correct? I need to subtract away f of x. Same trick. Just change everybody's signs. Rewrite him and change their signs. So it's going to be minus 2x squared minus 4. Cool? And then all over h. Not everything will cancel anymore. 2x squared minus 2x squared, gone. Plus 4 minus 4, gone. Right? But you're left with 4xh plus 2h squared all over h, which can simplify as well, because in your numerator, doesn't everything have an h with it? And in the denominator, doesn't everything have an h with it? So if I want to show you the long way, it's h times 4x plus 2h all over h. See how I factored out an h, that numerator? And then those cancel out, and you're left with 4x plus 2h. Or you could just realize 1h is going to disappear from everybody, and since he's an h squared, wouldn't there just be 1h left over in that one? Right? So the final answer is 4x plus 2h. Again, what's this used for? Take calculus. You'll figure it out, because then you'll take that and see what that is as h approaches 0 for a limit, and then you realize that's the slope of the tangent line at that particular function. What? Thank you. Next guy, another quadratic. Let me put him in a new window, and let's go with it. First, find f of x plus h. This is the ones where I would rather work down instead of across. I made a mistake on the first one. I'm going to substitute in. Pretty simple right there. 3 is still in front, but now I need to square that binomial. The trick is square the first term, x squared. Twice the product, which would be 2xh. Square the last term, which is h squared. And the awesome thing about this is you will always be taking x plus h quantity squared in parabola situations, so that will always turn out to be the same thing anyway, plus 1. Then keep bringing her down and distribute the 3. Or if you really wanted to, you could go straight to your difference quotient right away instead of writing it down twice, because once you distribute the 3, isn't that your f of x plus h in the first place? So I'm going to say that is really 3x squared plus 6xh plus 3h squared plus 1 in my difference quotient portion. Then I need to subtract away the original function, so everybody's sign changes, and it's all over h. Cancel stuff out. 3x squared, negative 3x squared, 1, negative 1. See these 3 leftovers? They should all have an h in them, right? So reducing by a factor of 1h in each one, that would cancel him out. There would still be 1h left over, being how there was 2 h's in that guy in the first place, and he is gone also. 6x plus 3h. Nice? Cool. Story time. The amount spent on internet advertising was that much in 2009. Very nice starting point. And is expected to do what? Grow. That means our slope is a positive, right? Because it's going to grow at this much billion per year for the next 5 years. Other things to notice, reading for details. Same number, right? So you don't have to put all the zeros. You can think of them as those particular decimals, and then you might have to read the instructions to see if you've got to put all the zeros or not in the final answer. Write an equation for the amount of internet advertising spending as a function of the number of years after 2009. So since they say this kind of rate, that means that it's linear, right? They say basically a constant rate. Which one's the slope? The 22.7 billion or the 2.25 billion? Which one's the slope? So I'm going to put an M right there. This is our starting value of B right there, our y-intercept. So that would be y equals 2.25 x plus 22.7. And realize it's in billions, right? We didn't put all the zeros. Use this function to estimate the amount that will be spent on internet advertising in 2015. What do you have to figure out when they tell you 2015 and you started in 2009? How many years has it been? How many years has that been? So x equals 6, correct? Substitute 6 in for x and figure out what y would equal. Y equals, you can go straight to the calculator, I'm fine with it. But this is what's happening. $36.2, is that what you get? Come on, pen. 36.2. Anything else important? $36.2 billion. So again, billion dollars. Read the problem. Do you need to put the zeros? Do you not need to put the zeros? Etc., etc. The company charting its profits notices that the relationship with the units sold, X, and the profit P is linear. If 300 units results in this profit and 375 units results in this profit, write the equation that models its profit. So they tell you it's linear. They give you information. X and Y basically right here. All this stuff tells you want to get two ordered pairs. So units sold is X. So don't we have 300 units sold right here? And then do you know the actual amount of profit in that situation? That would be 46.50. Everyone down with where that ordered pair came from right there. They also have another bit of information, 375, 9,000. It says write the equation that models that profit, so you need to find a slope. That would be 4350 over 75. That come out to be 58. If you really, really think about it and you want to know what that 58 means, these are your Y values, which is in dollars, correct? Isn't that what Y values are in? And this is in the number of units. So they're making $58 per 1 unit, correct? That's what their profit is right there, $58 per unit sold. And then we need to write the equation, though. So you have a slope and you have a point. Please use point-slope form to write the equation in that situation. They didn't ask you to find the slope. They asked you to write an equation. So point-slope form. Pick any point you want to. It doesn't matter which one. And then use point-slope form. Slope was just plain old 58. Use commas in large numbers. Even though MyMathLab doesn't require commas on some problems and some it does, you should always write a comma down. Other things that might be picky on there, if they ask you to type the whole thing in and you have y equals, they might mark that wrong because they told you the variable was p, and it wouldn't even be p equals, it'd be p of x because they wanted it as a function, equals 58x minus 12,750.